How's it going, everybody? My name's Luke C. Marcotte. Welcome back to the Blue Collar Power Hour. Today, we're talking about money, money, money. Everybody's favorite subject. So we're talking about money today. And so this is a huge aspect of why I inspire people to get into the trades. This is the number one question people ask me, especially those that have already gone to college or who's trying to push their kids to go to college or have made good money with the college route. And they ask me, what is the actual potential? What is the earning potential of any kind of tradesman? And if you watched our previous episodes, we talk about subsectors, and it depends heavily on what subsector you're in and also how you act in them. It all comes down to you for your earning level. You can make as much as you want, and you can make as little as you want. I've met guys who are in their 20s that make over 100 grand a year without a doubt. And I also know guys that are in their 60s that have never broke $30,000 a year. It's all in your initiative and your attitude and your mindset and where you're looking to go and how you set your goals. For all of that, watch the previous episodes. Today we're talking strictly about the actual dollar amount and how much you make and how much you should expect to make averagely from what I've experienced here in Michigan, which tends to be similar to other areas, but as you know, other costs of living can be higher, can be lower, so it might be different where you're from and also in the subsector that you want to get into. Go after the subsector that you actually could see yourself doing, a subsector that you could actually see yourself making a career out of, a trade that you would be proud to call yourself. Don't just chase the money, because otherwise you're just chasing unhappiness instead of actually being happy doing something. And if you're not passionate about it, you'll never make the great money anyway. So going back all the way to 2013, when I was 16 years old and I started as an apprentice electrician in Kalkaska, Michigan, I started at $10 per hour, which was pretty high for the time, especially being a junior in high school. So that was great. I was doing school to work. I would leave at lunch and I would go to work and I would work and work and work, and I just wouldn't stop. And so it worked out great because the guys that I worked with were really backed up, I guess, and they were really willing to work with me after my hours, after I got out of school, so I could help them. And so then we would also work weekends, etc. I would work full time on top of high school, which I loved. And I hope to inspire every single one of you in high school to do the same. Go back to compounding interest. You get higher pay for the earlier you start. So I started at $10 an hour. That was a fresh, green, someone that had no experience, and I owned like 5 hand tools. Okay, $10 an hour, which was the average starting rate at that area, and even some people thought it was high, because most people thought that you should start at minimum wage, because that's more than what they even started at. And then you fast forward 2 years when I was a second-year apprentice, and you realize that now, since inflation has gone up, housing prices have gone up, now that things cost more, and also the trades are now depleting with people because they are starting to retire, the price for labor goes up. So when I started at $10 an hour, and then 2 years later people were starting green right out of high school for $14 an hour, that was kind of a shock to me. I'm like, man, I had to work so hard and so long for 2 years, and these people are already starting at that. Now I was making more than $14 an hour at that point after I had discovered this. And so fast forward 2 years from my starting point, I was making $14 an hour. And I was sitting there on a job and I was training some people and I was teaching them how to do it, and certain things like bending conduit and running wire, etc., and labeling circuits. And then one guy had told me, he's like, yeah, I make $14 an hour. And I always lived by the idea that you don't ask people how much they make. It's not necessarily a bad thing, and you know, a lot of times it can actually be helpful, but I guess I just never asked. I just focused on myself so I could be the best that I could be. But somehow, some way, this one guy just brought it up that he made $14 an hour, and I was the one teaching him, and I was making $14 an hour. So I actually went to the project manager that I knew, and I said, hey, I love this company. I love you guys. I understand this. I understand this is a business. I understand you're trying to make money. I understand I still make mistakes because I'm new and I'm an apprentice, yada, yada. I'm like, but I deserve more. And I didn't say because these other guys make this much, because, you know, that's just kind of a cheap way out. I told myself, and I talked myself into, I got so infuriated, I guess, that when they told me that I'm like, man, if they're worth that, imagine what I'm worth for the stuff that I've built and what I can do and the stuff I do. And so that way I went to the project manager and I felt that fire in my heart. And I told him, hey, I'm making $14 an hour now. I need $17 an hour. And they're like, whoa. It's like, no, nobody is second year apprentice makes $17 an hour. And this was back a few years ago, obviously. And so now a second year apprentice averages $18 to $19 an hour, which would have been crazy back in that time, but now it's normal. And so at this time, $17 an hour for a second year apprentice was unheard of in Michigan. And they told me, no way, can't do it. They said $15 an hour. And I told them, I just laid out a bunch of examples. And so they're like, all right, well, we could give you $16 an hour. I'm like, no, I need 17 an hour because I feel that in my heart that that's what I deserve. And that's what it's going to inspire me to keep on working. And so anyways, long story short, I ended up kept negotiating and I got the $17 an hour and I ended up working harder for it. Now, don't expect to work the same amount when you get a raise. Work harder so you can go to that next raise. You don't deserve a raise. You have to earn the raise. So this is a huge part. I tell you this story because when you project your income and when I tell you the numbers that I have made, it comes down to a lot of things like this. Because you might know somebody, maybe it's your dad, your uncle, your cousin, who's never made over 30, 40 grand a year. But guess what? I know people in offices that have never made more than 30, 40 grand a year. I know people with a bachelor's, associates, and a master's degree that have never made over 40 grand a year, 30 grand a year for a matter of fact. And I know a lot of people with them degrees that came and were an apprentice electrician under me, which is a great option. But still, when you are going after price, when you're going after a dollar amount, your salary, it all comes down to you and the value you bring. You get solely paid off of the problems that you fix. And so if you're not fixing any problems, you're just showing up doing the same thing, you're waiting to be told what to do, and you're just kind of a wheel in the cog, which everybody is at the beginning, well, then you're going to be paid as a wheel in the cog, all right? But you got to start taking problems off of your leader. You have to start taking stuff off of his shoulders, start taking things into your hands, into the reins, and take lead of it. And so I've talked about this on a few times on this podcast. The year I was 20 years old, I made over $100,000. Now, that happened in a few ways. I worked as much overtime as I possibly could have. I'm not shitting you. I was up at 3 a.m., 20 feet in the air in a pole barn pulling wire. I was doing whatever it takes because I bought a house. I was buying a house, whatever time it was. That's hard to remember. But so anyways, getting down to the raw, hard numbers of what you should expect and what you could expect, low end and high end. So here's the gravy you've been waiting for. So when you start, you could start anywhere from $10 to $14 an hour, at least in the area we're in. Basically take the price of living in your area and adjust for that. I can't tell you if you live in California or New York, but $10 to $14 an hour is what you would averagely get started at. After a year or two, you're now a first, second year apprentice. It all depends on how much weight you're taking off of other people's shoulders. You could expect anywhere from $16 to $18 an hour. And then when you get to a third year to a fourth year, you can make anywhere from $20 to $22 an hour, and that's averagely. So when I was a third year apprentice at 19 years old, I was making $28 an hour. Now that was more than a lot of journeymans that had worked with me or around me that had been doing it for 20 years. But guess what? I took weight off of my boss's shoulders. Is that an anomaly? Sure, I guess. I'm not like, you could say I'm proud of myself for it, but it is what it is. I want you guys to be able to do the same thing, but you got to realize the weight of what it takes to make that money at that young of an age, let alone to make that money at all. And then if you go into more bigger city metros, this was like northern Michigan where wages were lower than average. And so now you go to bigger cities, now especially today, journeymans can make anywhere from $30 to $35, sometimes $40 an hour, as well as when you get into more of a project manager position where you're running groups of guys, crews of guys, you can make upwards of $50, $60 per hour. And this is when you get into the true six-figure club, when you can make six figures working 40, 50 hours a week. Okay, when I was 19 and made over 100 grand, that was working 80 to 100 hour weeks. Now that's not truly making 100 grand. Did I have 100 grand? Yes. But guess what? I had to work like hell for it, which in anything you're gonna have to work like hell for it. But to me, a true $100,000 a year is what you can make in 40 hours. And so now you get to a point where you can run crews of people. And it's not just simple work, it's like actual intricate work, and you're taking a lot of load off of your boss's shoulders that make you worth 100 grand a year. Bitching about not making 100 grand a year isn't working and making you worth 100 grand a year. I want all of you guys, I want all of us to make over 100 grand a year, but you got to work for it. You may not get it in 4 years, you may not get it in 6 years. It might take you 20 years, but you have to have it in your mindset that you are going to work for it, and no matter what, you will reach it. And that goes for anything. I know people in tech, I know people in pharmacy, I know people in medical that don't make over 100 grand a year, and I know people that do. And everybody that does make over 100 grand a year comes down to their discipline, their work ethic, their mindset, etc. And so it's so hard to tell you the exact solid numbers of what you could expect, but it all comes down to you and the effort you put in. So one aspect that helped me make a lot of money at a younger age is I had bought a vacant piece of property basically on a lake when I was 19 years old, and I had also logged it and I had sold it for more than I had paid for it. And so that way I made money that way. Well, that was taking money I made and reinvesting it. And that was just a little side project I had, and it helped me make a little extra money. And then, as when I was 20 years old, I found a house for sale. Actually, my mentor, Rob, found a house for sale for me as I was putting it out there of everything that I wanted to do and buy a house that was a fixer-upper. I wanted to live there, rent out some rooms, etc. And so everybody in the area was reaching out to me, and my mentor, Rob, the plumber that I keep talking about, called me one day. He's like, "Luke, I got the place for you." But guess what? I had the cash in the bank. I had everything in line. I had the approval from the bank already, so I was able to go in there and close on it instantly. So that goes back to the 99-1 rule that we talk about. So just go back to the previous episode and look at that. But when you make bigger amounts of money and you want to make bigger amounts of money sooner, it comes down to discipline and delayed satisfaction.
Discipline equals freedom. That's not a contradiction, it's an equation.
You can't sit there and be driving a brand new Power Stroke, Duramax, Toyota Tundra, whatever you want, while you're living with your mom and dad and you're putting all your money into that. You have to take that money and you have to live modestly, live below your means. Again, going back to my mentor, Rob, he told me just spend less than you make. That's the key to getting rich, and it really is. So then take that money and now buy a piece of real estate. And if you're lucky enough to live with your parents still where they didn't kick you out or anything like that, buy a piece of real estate and rent it out. And then guess what? Buy another piece of real estate and rent it out. And buy another piece of real estate and rent it out. So you get a little start of a little portfolio. With the trades, we have such an upper edge on everybody in the entire world when it comes to real estate. And so I was just talking to my new apprentice today about this because he was telling me his goals and dreams, which I ask everybody. He said he wanted a house on 20 acres with a big pole barn. He wants a Polaris Razor and a brand new truck and a Shelby Mustang. I'm like, great, guess what? I'm gonna make sure you have every single one of those motherfuckers and more. And he's like, really? I'm like, fuck yeah, dude. I'm like, but I'm gonna show you guys how when we fucking get into this new shop, when we get this new like training classroom set up. I'm gonna tell you exactly what I'm telling you guys here on this YouTube channel of how I do stuff with real estate. And I have a lot more to learn and a lot more to do, but you can always have the upper edge in the trades because you can do stuff yourself. You know what to look for so you can get a better deal. You know all these certain people that can help you do things, and maybe you can trade labor with them, etc. So it helps you have the upper edge when real estate investing. And so my biggest point of advice to you guys is don't just say, I'm gonna go be a real estate investor while you have $5 in the bank and you're sitting there flying by the seat of your pants, hoping you make it and everything like that when you only have to work on the place maybe 10, 20 hours a week. Work a full-time job, work your career, build your actual income, your career, so you keep your credit good, so you have constant cash flow, so you can constantly get new properties and do this on the side, contract out work if you need. Like I said, you have such an upper edge being in the trades about this with knowing people and knowing things about the house and seeing what's wrong already and how to fix it, etc., that you need to utilize it, especially if you want to make better money sooner. Now, if you're interested in learning more about this kind of stuff, I'm sure we'll be talking more about it. I have a lot of real estate investing friends that we're going to bring on the show, and then they can explain to you how they did it. I'll explain more detail how I do it, and I'll continue to show you guys on the channel and more fun related videos, not just the podcast, as we buy more houses to fix and flip or rent out, because I want you guys to utilize this skill set that you're just sitting on and not using. All right, this isn't me trying to sell you something. This is me putting this out there for free because I want to show you guys your better life. I want to show you guys that the trades are a great option, a great way to get started, a great way to make a living, a great life. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. If you know somebody looking to get into the trades, if you know somebody that doesn't know what they want to do, maybe they just graduated, especially with all this COVID stuff going on, maybe they're not going to be able to go to college next year, and so things are all up in the air. You don't know what it is. You might be lost. Well, guess what? Construction's still rocking and rolling. It hasn't slowed down, at least not in Detroit here. So send them over our way. Show them these videos. Share it with them. Share it with your family. Post it on your Facebook, anything like that. We do this for free for you guys. And so we're doing this to help you guys find your better life in the trades. And so once again, I appreciate you guys. I thank you for being here. And again, my name's Luke C. Marcotte. This is the Blue Collar Power Hour. Yeah. Shall we wait for the smoke to clear? Can you see it? Or?
No, you're good.
Okay.
It's already well.
Just hit me in the eyes, man. Damn. I know people with Dude, it's fucking